Hey folks, this is Josh Beatler with the Guitar Player School, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to use the guitar fretboard in order to figure out the notes of the major scale, and we're going to be learning a little bit about the major scale. So for the best video on improvising guitar, practicing technique, ear training, and more, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check back pretty much every Tuesday for new videos. I know I've missed a couple weeks. And for those of you interested, I just got ready to release my brand new Master the Pentatonic Shortcut course using three-dimensional scale playing to accelerate your lead guitar playing. There's a link below where you can fill out on the list and get on the early bird list. So if you're interested in massively improving your lead guitar, that is the video that you want to go to. Okay, so I've got this program called Neck Diagrams. And Neck Diagrams is a great resource that I use to teach my students. So in order to get the most out of this lesson, learning about the major scale, you have to first understand what the major scale is and how we get it. So we're going to teach you real quick about the major scale formula. The major scale formula is a formula of half steps and whole steps, or tones and semitones. So what does that mean? Well, on the guitar, it simply means 2 frets to the right or 1 fret to the right. So a whole step equals 2 frets, and a half step equals 1 fret. Another set of verbiage that people use is tone and semitone. So if I say tone, I mean 2 frets to the right, and semitone means 1 fret to the right. So first we're going to look at how to make a C major scale, because it's the best way to learn the major scale is following the music theory on the C major scale, because there's no sharps or flats. We'll get into that in a second. Okay, so right here on the 3rd fret on the A string, this is my C note. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it so that what we see here when we put notes on the fretboard is we see notes. Okay, so anywho, let's zoom in a little bit here. All right, so C. Now, the first, in order to do the major scale formula, it is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So when we start on C, we're going to go 2 frets to the right, 2 frets to the right, 1 fret to the right, 2 frets to the right, 2 frets to the right, 2 frets to the right, and then 1 fret to the right. And that should give us all the notes that we need for the C major scale. So starting on the C, I go up a whole step, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, a whole step, and then a half step. And what I have here are the notes of the C major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, now when I switch this over to intervals, whenever we start on a note and we follow this major scale formula, we get a series of letters, which is the notes. But these notes also follow a series of intervals. So an interval is the distance between 2 notes in music. So everything is relating back to this C as being the starting point. So if I switch this over to intervals, you're going to notice all these dots change to numbers. They should change to numbers. There we go. Okay, so R. What does R mean? R means that C, in this case, is the root of the scale. It's the starting part of the scale. It's the ending part. All of these other numbers and notes are just trying to get back to C in this instance. So when I follow this major scale formula, I get the following root, or also known as 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1. Now you'll notice if I change any of these notes, if I move them up or down, the number inside is going to change. So what I just did here was I took the 3rd note of the scale and I moved it down, or I flatted the note, flatted it. And now you'll notice it says flat 3. If I take this 2 and move it down, it will become a flat 2. So when you're learning music theory and you see scale diagrams and scale formulas that say, 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, flat 7, what they're talking about is using the major scale as your starting point and then taking the notes in the scale and moving them up or down. And it's that simple. Okay, so anyway, that was a little tangent for you. So let's talk about some other scales that we can do. So we're going to try and keep these all near the C major scale because we're talking about scales that are close to this. So how about for the next scale, I'm going to do the G major scale. So the G major scale, there's a G note right here. So again, we're going to go up whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now you're going to notice here that something happened with this one note. This is an F sharp. What that means, it is 1 fret higher than F. We sharped the F. If you look back up here at the C major scale, you notice that between E and F is a half step. There's only 1 fret in between the two. But for some reason, it's still just letters of the alphabet, E and F. E and F and B and C are the only natural notes. When I say natural, I just mean a letter of the alphabet. Okay, so B and C and E and F are the only natural notes that have a half step in between them. If you notice C to D, there's a whole step. D to E, there's a whole step. F to G, there's a whole step, etc. E and F and B and C are the only half steps when it comes to natural notes. So when we start making other scales, if I have to move the E and F farther apart, that's where the sharp comes from. You'll notice if I take a B and move the C up, it becomes C sharp. Okay, so this is our G major scale. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Forget my singing. Okay, let's talk. So that scale has a sharp in it. And I'm going to do another separate video on the circle of fifths, and this is going to become very important. Okay, so let's do now, say, the F major scale. So I'm going to start on this F note, and the same thing, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, so you notice F to G is a whole step. G to A is a whole step. The half step now happens between A and B flat. Well, why is this a B flat? Well, again, remember, between A and B is a whole step. But I need there to be a half step in between these two notes. So by taking the B and moving it down, it now becomes a B flat. Now, some people, if you know a little bit about music theory, you know that this note could also be called an A sharp. And so why is this a B flat and not an A sharp? Or can you have both? And the answer is no, you cannot have both. You can't have an A and an A sharp in the scale. And the reason being is because when you're looking at a staff, music staff, you would end up having 2 dots on the same line of a piece of staff paper. And it would just become confusing for the performer to read. So in music theory, the reason why they have B flat and A sharp is just so it's a little easier for the performer to read on a piece of paper. Okay, so you'll notice here that every single letter of the alphabet is present. I've got an A. Even though this is B flat, what I want you to pay attention to is the fact that there is a B, some type of B note. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, back to A. Same thing with this scale. You have A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, which is a type of F, and then G, and then back to A. So you can't have 2 of the same letter in a scale. Now, if I were to keep going to the next fret, starting on this is a B flat. So again, B flat, whole step to C, right? Because B to C is a half step. So B flat to C is our whole step. Whole step, half step. Okay, now this is an incorrect instance on the fretboard, so I will change that in a second. F, G, A, and then back to B flat. All right, so what I'm going to do is make B flat the root, and it should change this to E flat, but it did not. So let's see if I can change that over here. Bingo. Now this would be correct, okay, because we can't have a D and a D sharp. We have to have all of the letters of the alphabet. So there are major scales that have sharps in them, such as the key of G. There are major scales that have flats in them, such as the key of F and the key of B flat. And then the only scale that has no sharps or flats is the key of C. And that's why in music theory we typically start with that first. All right, so I hope you got something out of this video. This is Josh Beatley with the Guitar Player School. Again, if you're interested in my Master the Pentatonic scale, Master the Pentatonic shortcut scale, if you're interested in my course, Ultimate Pentatonic Shortcut, be sure to click the link in the description to get on the early bird mailing list because the course is coming out soon. It's done. Okay, have a great day. Practice, rock on.